Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Wilson. I'm the chair of the North West and North Wales Energy Institute Committee. So I'm just here to welcome everyone onto the call, try and manage proceedings, and to introduce Simon, who has kindly offered to present to us this evening. Simon has done this at very short notice. Vicky, Paley, who was due to speak, has had another appointment to attend to, so Simon stepped in last minute, so very much appreciate. Thank you for that, Simon. If obviously we've probably got maybe 40 minutes or so of a talk, maybe a little bit less. There'll be some time for questions at the end. Please just add any questions you've got to the chat. I'll make a note of it, and we'll try and run through them at the end, and we'll just get through as many as we can. If we run over, then we'll get them to Simon to answer. Worst case scenario is we'll aim to finish for 7 o'clock. So I'll just pass straight on to Simon. If you can give a brief introduction to yourself, what your role is, and then just please, if you want to share your presentation and fire away. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much, Chris. Hi, good evening, everybody. Nice to meet you all. So my name is Simon Ritson. I'm a project manager with Protium. Protium Green Solutions are a hydrogen energy services company, so we focus on providing energy services solutions to clients, with a focus on green hydrogen being the core of that. It's not just limited to pure green hydrogen, but that's kind of our focus. Myself, I'm an electrical. Apologies for the noise. I'm an electrical electronic engineer by background, having worked variously in the defence industry, consumer electronics, and lighthouse and age navigation. But I've been working in the renewable sector for the last 5 years, mostly focused on tidal, onshore wind, and now green hydrogen. So I'm just going to share my screen and bring up the presentation we have. Let's check everybody can see that presentation okay?
Chris, yes, thank you. Yeah, perfect, thank you.
Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, my colleague Vicky Paley, who's the lead project manager with Protium, she was, as I say, supposed to do this presentation, but we both worked together on this particular project that we're going to, well, one of the particular projects that we're going to focus on, which is in the Samlesbury area near Preston. But this is a sort of general introduction to Protium, what we do, why we do green hydrogen, and then focus on a couple of the projects that we're currently working on. Okay. Like Chris said, if you've got any questions, just feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll catch up with them as we go along. Okay. Just a brief agenda of what we're going to do. So I'll just do some introductions just of myself and Vicky, a brief overview of Protium, what we do, why we're focused on green hydrogen, and then go through a couple of case studies of projects. The Samlesbury one is obviously of interest to Chris because it's very close to him. It's one of the sort of the lead projects we're working on. The Pioneer one is actually our first operational project. It's actually already up and running. And then just a little sort of information about other projects we're working on, and then time for questions at the end. So moving on, introductions. So I said a little bit about myself. As a project manager with Protium, I've been with Protium for almost a year now, primarily focused on the project in Samlesbury, trying to develop the green hydrogen production and refueling system there, working closely with the APM Brewery that's next door. My colleague Vicky, who hopefully will join us later, is lead project manager with Protium, so she has kind of oversight of all our projects that we're doing, but she's also the lead project manager for the Samlesbury Net Zero Project. Vicky's background is as a process engineer in the chemical industry, and she's been involved in the hydrogen market for over 5 years. Okay, so a little bit of introduction to Protium. So our aim is to, as I said, develop, own and operate renewable assets with a primary goal of using those to produce green hydrogen and that green hydrogen we use to help decarbonise clients, particularly kind of those hard to abate sectors that can't be electrified. So particularly things like HGV vehicles, where electrification and batteries are just kind of cost prohibitive and weight prohibitive, and you need the extended range and the short refueling times that you can get with a fuel rather than batteries, and then large industrial operations where you need heat that can't always be electrified as well. So things like boilers, where the steam demand or the heat demand is beyond what you can achieve with current, at least electric boilers, and also as a kind of an energy storage system as well. So there is kind of the option to transport hydrogen as a compressed gas. It's not particularly an efficient way of doing that, but it can be done. But so we ideally like to work, we call it over the fence. So having kind of our hydrogen production facilities co-located with our clients. So we have those as a primary client. We've reduced the infrastructure, we've reduced the need for transportation. So hydrogen is kind of a cost competitive way to decarbonize solutions, particularly, as we've seen over the last 18 months, energy costs rising for fossil fuels and hydrocarbon fuels, and it's actually bringing sort of the price point for hydrogen closer towards what companies are paying for traditional fuel sources, and we see kind of that probably going, further that way. But the other thing, particularly with hydrogen, is that it becomes a stability issue, because our feedstocks are electricity and water, and that electricity comes from renewable sources. So we have a reasonably healthy supply of both electricity and water in the UK generally. It gives us that energy independence from imports, and companies can use that to sort of insulate themselves from increasing fuel costs, and kind of stabilize their costs going forward. One of the good things about hydrogen, it's very combustible. It's an easy fuel to burn, relatively clean to burn as well. But things like boiler systems can be retrofitted relatively straightforward and relatively quickly with minimal cost. So companies are not having to change out masses of infrastructure to change their fuel source from natural gas to hydrogen, for example. Again, on vehicles, vehicles can be retrofitted, or they can be built to run on hydrogen right from the start. Again, at the moment, vehicles are generally slightly more expensive, but as volume increase, transition moves more towards higher volumes of HGV vehicles running on hydrogen. We believe that cost will come down, and you're going to reach a sort of a parity point to existing HGV uses. And just lastly, we feel that with especially sort of the hydrogen model that we use, that it's a very repeatable model, and so it can be a very robust model. It can be deployed in project terms relatively quickly, and installed into the client's property or business in a relatively short period of time. Okay, so Protium, we use what we call a HESCO model. That stands for Hydrogen as an Energy Services Company, which means we don't just offer green hydrogen as a product. We look at a client's total energy needs and look at sort of various different solutions to how we can help them decarbonize, because that's our main aim, is to help companies decarbonize and achieve net zero. So that can be, both applying hydrogen as an alternative source of fuel, but also, if we have either co-located or sort of decentralized renewables that we can offer to them to allow them to replace their electricity supply from their normal grid connection and save both money and carbon on that. And we look at, a whole kind of range of different options for what we can do to help the company decarbonize. So we believe we've got, a good end-to-end solution that we can offer clients, delivered by an excellent team Like I say, we focus on having a primary client, but we would generally kind of oversize our production facilities and then look to have an additional supply of hydrogen available for merchant offtake in the future, so it's not just tied to a single client. So we work with that client, but we kind of diversify our client base as well. Again, aimed at helping our clients decarbonize in different industries and different parts of their business, using the right solutions where it's appropriate, so not just forcing them to use or suggesting we use hydrogen in all situations. It's going to what's going to work for the long-term benefit of the company, and then so they can decarbonize both multiple systems within their operation and also across multiple sites.
Hi everyone, Vicky Paley here. Sorry I'm late.
Good afternoon, Vicky. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Cool. Do you want to jump in, or do you want me to carry on?
If you just carry on while I get my bearings, and then I can always jump in. Thank you. No worries.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So Protium, we believe that we can offer a hydrogen solution in a relatively short lead time in terms of normal kind of energy infrastructure projects. Especially if we can have co-located renewables and we're not dependent on bringing those new renewables either through the grid or having to do grid expansion, which is going to inflict long lead times on us. Our guaranteed off-taker, that co-located off-taker means that we have a guaranteed sort of business model that we know is going to work for us, and we can then use that to demonstrate our capabilities, build on what we've already delivered on previous projects, prove that we can do this with hydrogen, and we have both those strong relationships with our clients, but also we're working with a number of key suppliers in the market in terms of both electrolysis suppliers, and we have a key relationship with Siemens and EPC partners in Petrofac, who are working on a number of our projects to actually deliver the engineering and the on the ground civils and infrastructure development. And then Protium has, even though we're a relatively new company, we've been going just over 3 years, we have strong backing from a number of investors over that time, because they believe in the model that we're pushing, and that that can be a long-term solution for us as a company and for the country, and wider, that hydrogen can become a viable solution to helping people achieve net zero.
I think as well what we offer, we are very customer focused, which is quite unique for the hydrogen industry, which is looking at a lot of mega hubs, mega scale, trying to drive down the levelized cost of hydrogen. Our approach is to look at a decentralized model where we're very client focused, looking at providing solutions that add value to our customers. And by doing that, we are also lowering the barrier for entry for other customers in the area to be able to access the infrastructure that we are creating. So we always start with an anchor off-taker, as Simon said, and we have about 90% contracted volume to that anchor off-taker, which helps us to develop the project and finance the project. But then we always reserve capacity on our projects to enable other customers to come in and be able to access that and obviously lower that barrier for entry. So at our project in South Wales, in Magor, at the APM Brewery down there, we're also working with the Magor Local Council in Wales. Local councils have a 2026 mandate to be net zero, so we're working with them to see how they can potentially access the hydrogen to be able to meet their targets where previously they wouldn't have had access to that infrastructure. So although we are decentralized and customer centric, which is quite a move away from a kind of traditional green hydrogen approach, we believe that this model creates a network across the UK, which will help not just our customers but other organisations to benefit.
Cool. Thank you, Vicky. Okay, so a little bit about why we use green hydrogen as opposed to other forms of hydrogen. Okay, so for companies looking to decarbonise our energy demands, particularly in heat and transportation. Industries, we have targets for achieving net zero that have been set by UK government, but we also have a lot of clients or companies out there who have set their own net zero targets, which are usually a little bit more ambitious, but they need to get there, and the current sort of development of grid expansion to either electrify things just isn't going to happen fast enough, and they need to look for alternative solutions to provide electricity, gas and heat for their industries and for their operations. So
for 5 years with we've got.
Yeah, so industry and clients are looking to for on-site integrated renewables solutions, but renewable electricity alone isn't going to provide all of their demands. There are particular processes and sectors which require a fuel solution, and so hydrogen comes into there to meet that demand very well. And then we can, which is, sorry, I was the package.
Sorry, Simon. Yeah, no, that's fine. So our customers generally are consumer-facing industrial manufacturers. So they have external pressures from their customer base in order to meet net zero, and a lot of them have set very ambitious targets to meet net zero by 2026, between 2026 and 2030. Further to that, a lot of our customers, especially in industrial sector, are not part of industrial hubs. So actually up to 50% of industry in the UK is outside of industrial hubs, and therefore they won't have access to the sort of government funded infrastructure which is going to help meet net zero. And so on top of that, they also have very complex energy demands, so whether that's a mixture of heat, logistics and transport, and also material handling, that they need to decarbonize their whole ecosystem. And what then Protium provides is a decarbonisation as a service opportunity. So we develop, build, own and operate integrated green hydrogen production facilities and renewable energy infrastructure upstream of the hydrogen production to deliver green hydrogen to our customers on a long-term energy contract, energy as a service contract, which we call a HESCO, which is a hydrogen as an energy services contract, so that they can access green hydrogen to decarbonize the different vectors within their business. So whether that be transport, heat, material handling, as I mentioned, and we also provide renewable electricity as well. So using one decentralized, integrated industrial facility co-located to their operations, we can decarbonize them within the timeframes that they've set. So if you want to go on to the next slide, Simon. So this is where we really see green hydrogen adding value. We don't think green hydrogen is, a silver bullet in any way, and we think that it should be part of an ecosystem with other decarbonisation solutions. And when we approach our clients and when we work with our clients, we always try and balance their needs and what they already have available to them with green hydrogen as a complementary solution as well. And indeed, even where we see that maybe green hydrogen doesn't fit their solution, we'll be upfront about not developing a project with them. But where we see green hydrogen really playing a role versus other decarbonisation solutions is that it's an available decarbonisation option. It has 100% decarbonisation potential, so you can use it across multiple vectors to address all of your emissions. It's a mature technology available at scale, so electrolysis technology is proven and is being developed more and more at scale. The total cost of ownership is competitive compared to electrification, particularly when you think about the grid limitations currently in the UK and the cost of batteries for storing electricity. However, we think that there's definitely a balance to be played there. And then also, as I mentioned on the previous slide, looking at the broader stakeholder considerations. So for our customers, we're looking at making sure the quality of the product doesn't change, making sure that operations aren't impacted by the decarbonisation option. So if you're looking at heat pumps or electrification, for a malting company, for example, you could be looking at a full redesign of a plant for an electrification option, whereas green hydrogen can fit in quite nicely with just a substitute fuel to the gas that they're currently using. And also looking at wider stakeholder benefits, as I mentioned. So does this technology give access, or does it lower the barriers for access to other stakeholders to be able to benefit from the technology and meet their decarbonisation targets? Do you want to pop onto the next slide, Simon, for me? Thank you. So we can just talk, TCO is total cost of ownership. So we basically look at all of the costs associated with a particular technology. So that would include the capital costs, any operations and maintenance, any fuel costs if it was for transport, and then we look at that on a per unit basis and compare it against the different technologies. So we're just going to dive into a couple of our projects now. One I think you probably all would be quite familiar with, that Simon and I are working on, which is our Samlesbury Net Zero Project with APM Bev in Samlesbury. So it's an integrated green hydrogen production facility, and it's sitting alongside the Samlesbury Brewery, just off Vicarage Lane. We will be providing green hydrogen over the fence to APM Bev to use in their boilers for their thermal demand, and also providing refueling for their HGVs. So the facility is using PEM electrolysis and 10 megawatts of sleeved renewables from a wind site that we have up in Scotland. So that's where Simon was talking about in the first slide, our use of sleeved renewables for our projects. Also has storage, and it will abate up to 11,000 tonnes of CO2 a year across both heat and transport. So in terms of progress on the project, and I'll kind of pause after this and take any questions that you have on this particular project as well. So we're currently in the front-end engineering design phase of the project, and we're looking to submit planning in mid-July, and pushing for financial close in Q1 next year, with commercial operation date for the end of 2025. So this is our most advanced project in our portfolio, and we're really, really excited about developing it up here in Lancashire. I've just arrived here. I'm at the Bluebird Inn currently. So yeah, and Simon and I are leading on this one with APM Bev. So I'll just pause there, and if you have any questions in particular on this one, feel free to drop them in the chat. So it's we've acquired a shovel-ready permitted wind farm in the UK. So it will be a new wind farm when it's built. So the planning permission is for the green hydrogen production facility. So it will be for the full site that you see on this artist's impression on the slide. So there's an electrolyzer, a grid connection, there's some compression and hydrogen storage, and a refueling station. So because it's a new development on new land, it requires planning permission with the local planning authority. I hope that answers your question there, Ruth. So we calculate the amount of hydrogen required by the site by, we work really closely with our off-taker to understand what their heat demand is for the site and how much of that we can how much of that they're using currently from natural gas and how much we can displace with hydrogen. So for example, at this particular site, the brewery are looking at employing some other technologies alongside hydrogen, such as a heat pump to recover waste heat, and also some gasification processes where they're recycling some of their waste streams to provide heat to the brewery, and then hydrogen will sit alongside that. So we work with them to understand their demand profile and also the demand profile from their logistics fleet. So they have 200 movements, I think, a day on this site. So looking at how we can phase that decarbonisation of those trucks as well. In terms of safety, I can hand over to Simon to touch on that, but we will require hazardous substance consent and coma consent for the permits for the site. So yeah, like all gas production sites, there will be safety regulations and safety design that we will adhere to. But Simon, I don't know if you want to put a bit more meat on the bones of that.
Yeah, in terms of the environmental permitting, yeah, so for any kind of site of this kind of size that's producing and storing hydrogen, we are required to have a hazardous substances consent, which is an application managed at the local planning authority level, although the HSE act as a consultant on that. That's for storage, particularly for hydrogen, that's for storage of hydrogen more than 2 tons. Oh, sorry, yeah, more than 2 tons on site. And then if you go above that level and get up to the point of 5 tons, then you come into the COMA regulation, which is control of major accident hazards, which is regulation managed by the HSE. And we're going to fall within that category. So we will have more than 5 tons on site, but we have less than 50 tons, which is kind of the next tier of regulation. And that requires sites to be permitted by the HSE. So you're required to have has IDs done, risk assessments for all your all your processes on site, all your storages on site, suitable containment of storage in case of any accidents, and then a hazard or an accident management plan in place to both suppress any fires on site and make sure that nothing on site will then endanger life of the staff on site or in neighbouring buildings, houses or factories. So that's a process we will go through with the HSE over the next 12 months to get those approvals in place. We're just going to kick it. Well, we've been looking at this for about 8-9 months, and we're going to kick off those processes with the local authority and the HSE quite soon.
And we also will require an environmental permit for the site as well. So we'll be submitting that as part of the planning application to the environmental agency. In terms of life cycling costs, I assume that this question's around buying electrons versus buying molecules. So what we offer is, where we see hydrogen playing a role is definitely on the storage side in particular, and also being able to have the opportunity to decide whether it is better value to buy an electron or to buy a green molecule. So our projects, with our kind of blended approach across transport, heat and renewable electricity, we look to be cost neutral or better across the lifespan of the project. And so our project contracting is around 15 to 20 years. And so across that, at a fixed price, we look to be competitive against natural gas. So water is a big topic and something that we're actively looking at responsible water stewardship as part of our ESG strategy corporately. So for this site in particular, we'll be looking at the water mains rather than the local boreholes. It's a very local technical reason why, but basically those boreholes are specifically for the brewery and are licensed for that purpose only, and to get them relicensed for use for an industrial facility, it's going to be extremely difficult. So we are using mains tap water. One thing that we're looking at actively across our portfolio with our clients is how we can integrate the electrolyzer into any wastewater streams that come from our clients, particularly if you look at someone like brewer that has a huge water demand and then water streams coming out of their site, how we can, in the phase 2 of the project, look to integrate that water into our process to have a complete closed loop and then increase the sustainability of the project even more. So that's definitely something that we actively look at with all of our projects across our portfolio. In terms of the cost per tonne of CO2 saved, I guess it depends who you believe in terms of what carbon costing currently is, carbon pricing currently is, and where it's going to sit in the future. But that's something we can potentially share our outlook on this afterwards, Chris. We can have a chat on that after. But Andrew. Okay, can we go on to the next slide, please, Simon? Thanks for all your questions. It's great. I know it's hard to be interactive on Teams, but we really appreciate that. So I think I've touched on quite a few of these anyway, but where we see our HESCO solution and decentralized decarbonisation as a service solution adding value, we see it from a commercial and operational and an environmental perspective. So a lot of companies look at purely commercial, but however, the way that we integrate these solutions has several layers of benefit. First, decarbonisation as a service. We offer a single contract, energy as a services contract over a long term to provide customers with a decarbonised solution. If they were to go down a separate route, maybe an electrification route, they may need to do several different contracts in order to get to the same gain in terms of carbon savings. So for example, if you wanted to do electrification for heavy goods vehicles, you would need to contract with the OEMs, you'd need to contract with batteries, contract with recharging, grid, etc. So it's a lot more complicated environment. And as a company, Protium take on all the upfront risk. So we assume all of the financial, technological, development risk, and all of the CapEx risk upfront to deliver that energy as a service over the life of the contract. We also, because we offer a fixed price over the duration of the contract and we're not pegged to natural gas or pegged to diesel, we believe that we offer a price stability in this current climate. I'm sure you can all appreciate with the spikes in gas prices that we've seen and the uncertainty moving forward, particularly around Russian renewal of contracts in the next week or so. There's a lot of volatility in the market, and which can really hinder our customers in understanding where they're going to be in the next few months. So being able to hedge away from that and protect them from the exposure of that volatility of the commodity markets is really important. I mentioned minimal disruption to site. So, you know, the most expensive energy is the energy you don't have. So we really look to try and integrate our solution in with minimal disruptions to the site. Also looking at the way that we can integrate technologies that are a like for like, swap in, swap out, so that there's no kind of massive redesign and shutdown periods for our customers, because they generally volume-based production out to consumers. Accelerating decarbonisation, like I said, our solution, we are looking to be up and running by the end of 2025, start of 2026. So really helping our clients to achieve their decarbonisation targets on schedule as they've committed to their shareholders and to the public. Obviously the CO2 savings, and as I've kind of harped on about for the last 10 minutes, looking at reducing the barriers to entry for supply chain partners, and really trying to catalyse that decarbonisation for others through the rollout of facilities in a decentralised manner. Can you go to the next slide, please, Simon? So this is just another, oh, sorry, the sleeved, sorry, Andrew. So sleeved electricity is where we have a remote renewable energy facility such as wind that we have up in Scotland, and we basically that wind farm will produce an electron and then that electron will be received at the Samlesbury Net Zero site. And we basically sell that electron to ourselves for free, and then we just pay the non-commodity charges, so the grid charges and things like that. So that's the term sleeve. We basically sleeve that electron from another site to ourselves at this site. Can we go on to the next slide, please, Simon? So I think it's important to note that even though we're a relatively young company and Samlesbury is our most progressed major project, we already have operating assets in the UK. So we have a, if you could just flip on, thank you, electrolyser called Pioneer 1, which is in Baglan in South Wales. It's a 100 kilowatt electrolyser, which is quite small, but it produces about 40 kilos a day of hydrogen, but it provides us with the opportunity to, first of all, purchase, commission, and operate a green hydrogen production facility, even though it is small. But the learnings from that operation have been invaluable for us as a company. And as we kind of go through our portfolio, we'll be stepping up the scale of our Pioneer project. So we've got Pioneer 2, which will be coming online next year, which is a 2 megawatt solution. So it's a step up from the 100 kilowatts, but it's still not what we would consider to be a commercial scale as we're doing at Samlesbury or any of our other projects, and just incrementally learning from these projects has been extremely beneficial for us as a company. So yeah, we have an operational facility which we sell gas from. We actually sold gas to the Swansea bus trial a couple of weeks ago. So they used green hydrogen from our project to power a bus route in Swansea. I think it was 2 weeks ago, Simon, I can't remember now. So also getting experience in, the sales of green hydrogen as a gas in the market where it's currently not a commodity. So it's been a really interesting experience for us as a company, and obviously giving us those incremental steps into where we're going on our larger projects. And if we just keep going, sorry, onto our final one. So we have a pipeline of projects throughout the development life cycle. We have 6 projects in development at the moment, varying stages, and we have about 20 in the pipeline. So we see huge interest coming in from our customers. A lot of our customer acquisition is very organic, comes in through our info at Protium inbox, which is really exciting. So we are seeing a lot of movement in the market, which is really great. But the 2 I can discuss a little bit more detail are our Magor Net Zero project, which is in Magor in South Wales with APM Bev. So same customer as the Samlesbury project, much bigger facility. It's around double the size. The brewery is the biggest in the UK, brews about 3 billion pints of beer a year, which if you're not an avid beer drinker is a lot of beer. Has a significant and complex energy demand, material handling. 3 million bottles of beer are bottled there every week. It has 200 to 300 heavy good vehicle movements on site every day. So as you can imagine, it's very busy and a very, very intense energy demand and varied energy demand. So we're doing a very similar project where we're looking at deploying 17 megawatts of electrolysis co-located next door to the site on a piece of land that we have an option on. And we're looking at producing almost 3,000 tonnes of hydrogen there for the brewery to provide them with hydrogen. We also have our own dedicated renewables at this site. So about less than a kilometre away, we have a renewable site for solar and wind, which we're looking to go through planning and permitting at the same time as a joined up project with the hydrogen production facility. So this project has co-located renewables and not sleeved ones, which is the difference between this and Samlesbury. And we also have our project in Tees Valley on the River Tees. This is a hub facility, so it's quite a lot larger than the 2 brewery projects. It's 50 megawatt hub. We are looking at providing hydrogen to several potential customers in the area. If you know the River Tees at all, you'll know it's a big industrial cluster. It's also been nominated as a free port in not the latest budget, maybe the one before. So it's a really exciting area for hydrogen. There's also a lot of blue hydrogen going on in that area, and a potential hydrogen artery pipeline that could be going in. So that's a really exciting project. We're really excited to be in Tees Valley on that one, and it's one of our bigger projects looking at a hub model, providing hydrogen to multiple off-takers in the first phase rather than phases after. So I think next slide is just questions. Thank you very much first of all, to Chris for inviting us to speak. We really appreciate it, and sorry I was late. But if you have any, we can take questions now. Obviously, we've got 15 minutes more, but if there's any further thoughts after, then feel free to drop me an email. My email's on the presentation.
Thank you. That was brilliant. Thank you very much, both Simon and Vicky. Hopefully, you'll enjoy some of the hospitality and the Bluebird Inn after.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I might just ask a couple of questions for me, if that's okay, just to get things going, see if there's any others that come in. In terms of, so that there's obviously not a lot of on-site renewable generate potential on-site. There's a lot of big structures and sheet metal roofs, etc. Will there be plans for on-site generation as well as the sleeved arrangement? Yeah.
Particularly at Samlesbury.
Yeah.
Yeah, so especially with rooftop, it's something that we are actively looking into.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
I know the brewery has been pursuing that for a while anyway, because I think it's one of the only breweries in the UK breweries are some of the only ones in Budweiser's portfolio that don't have rooftop solar.
Okay. And did you have to upgrade the connection there to facilitate?
We have our own connection.
Okay.
We have our own 20 MVA connection.
So did that have to be upgraded, or was that part of what was there originally?
So it's completely separate to the brewery.
Okay.
Yeah, it's coming from a separate substation.
Right, I see. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so that facilitates the additional capacity you need. Okay.
Yeah. So as you'll understand with renewables, it's intermittent. So we have basically 3 volumes of renewables. We have volume 1, which is our own co-located renewables, which is the cheapest. We have volume 2, which is our sleeve renewables, which we pay non-commodity charges on. And then whatever's left, we have a sculpted PPA profile, which we'll then buy off the grid, which is obviously our most expensive than hydrogen.
Yeah. Okay.
We've been calling it.
So the project in Scotland, is that through a special purpose vehicle company, or is it all okay? Yeah,
so all of our projects are through special purpose vehicles.
Okay, so it just kind of keeps the risk at arm's length.
Yeah, so we hold the risk. So I mean, looking at funding, they may be wholly owned by Protium, but they're all SPVs, so there'll be 100% equity. The equity portion would be owned by Protium potentially. We may not bring in other partners, and just to try and keep a kind of if we're looking at building up a network, if you have one project over in Magor that has different partners to a project in Samlesbury, but you have the same client, it can become difficult for those projects to interact in a way that you maybe want them to. As an energy company, want to have kind of control over your whole portfolio. So yeah, we're just looking at how they're structured now, but all of our projects sit in SPVs underneath the parent.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is Protium.
It was no mean feat getting a 20 megawatt connection.
Yeah.
how long did that take?
Not as long as you'd think, really. But obviously the build out will probably be we're looking at about 18 months, I think, build out for that connection. Yeah.
See if anyone else has got any other questions. Feel free to shout out. Yep. So Andreas, do you want to come off mute and just ask the question?
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, Andreas.
I just wanted to ask, because I got a little bit confused as to what do you mean by decarbonisation as a service?
So it's kind of something we've coined ourselves, but we're offering an energy as a service contract, which a traditional energy as a service contract is the developer takes on all of the risk. So they might buy land, build a wind farm, and then provide you with renewable electricity for 20 years as an energy as a services contract. So what we're saying is that we're not just providing energy, we're providing decarbonisation, because what we're saving is what our customers want is decarbonisation across all of their vectors. So energy, thermal, transport, material handling. So we've kind of coined that decarbonisation as a service. I hope that makes it more clear.
Thank you for that. So in that way, I imagine then you would be pricing the hydrogen that the brewery would be using, as well as the electricity that they'd be using to kind of, okay. I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so our main product that we sell is green hydrogen, and then we offer value add services. So the contract, basically what we do is we come up with a blended price, which would be the renewable electricity, hydrogen for heat, and hydrogen for displacing diesel, and then that will be the single price that we basically provide to our customers, and they are able to decarbonize several vectors across their operations.
I see. That's understandable. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Thank you, Andreas. Any other questions? No, good. I think that's it from everyone. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you both again for your time. I appreciate you had a bit of a journey before this, Vicky, and you've got some other presenting to do tomorrow as well, I think.
No worries. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. It'll be great.
Lancashire Net Zero, isn't it? So I'll probably see you there, as I'm planning to go.
Fabulous.
Just a final thing from me. If there's anyone on the call who's got other interest in projects, or they've got potential for hosting or sponsoring events, or have any ideas for the types of events that we should be putting on, then please get in touch through the Northwest branch on the EI website, and if you want to join the group, then you're more than welcome. Or if you've got other things that you think would be of interest to us, then please do get in touch. So I'll close down the call. The recording will be published over the next few days onto the Energy Institute YouTube channel. So please share that if you think it would be benefit to others to listen to it. Thanks very much again, folks. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much for inviting us. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.